He was found on an Australian beach in a neat suit, perfectly positioned, half a cigarette balanced on his collar. No identification, no cause of death. No one reported him missing. Every label had been cut from his clothing. And in a hidden pocket sewn into his trousers, a tiny rolled scrap of paper. 2 words in Persian, Tamam, Shud. It is finished. Somerton Beach, Adelaide, Australia. The evening of November 30th, 1948. Several people noticed a man propped against the concrete seawall as the sun went down. He was well dressed, relaxed looking. His legs were outstretched. His feet were crossed at the ankles. Some assumed he was drunk. Some assumed he was sleeping. No one disturbed him. The next morning, December 1st, he was still there. He had not moved. He was dead. The man was somewhere between 40 and 45. Fit, athletic build. Good teeth. Manicured nails. His suit was clean and pressed. His shoes were polished. He looked like a man who took care of himself. A man with somewhere to be. He had no wallet, no identification, no keys, no ticket, nothing in his pockets that could tell anyone who he was, and every single label had been cut from every item of clothing he wore, every one, deliberately. Nobody in Adelaide had reported a man matching his description as missing. Nobody in Australia had. Nobody anywhere had. Somerton Beach, Adelaide, Australia. The evening of November 30th, 1948. Several people noticed a man propped against the concrete seawall as the sun went down. He was well dressed, relaxed looking. His legs were outstretched. His feet were crossed at the ankles. Some assumed he was drunk. Some assumed he was sleeping. No one disturbed him. The next morning, December 1st, he was still there. He had not moved. He was dead. The man was somewhere between 40 and 45. Fit, athletic build. Good teeth. Manicured nails. His suit was clean and pressed. His shoes were polished. He looked like a man who took care of himself. A man with somewhere to be. He had no wallet, no identification, no keys, no ticket, nothing in his pockets that could tell anyone who he was, and every single label had been cut from every item of clothing he wore, every one, deliberately. Nobody in Adelaide had reported a man matching his description as missing. Nobody in Australia had. Nobody anywhere had. When police showed Jessica Thompson the plaster cast of the dead man's face, she reacted in a way that stayed with investigators for decades. She almost fainted. Then she composed herself and told police she did not know who he was. She was shown the copy of the Rubaiyat found in the nearby car. She said she had given a copy of that book to a man named Alfred Boxall during the war. But she was certain Boxall was still alive. Police found Boxall. He was alive. He still had his copy of the Rubaiyat. It was intact. Jessica Thompson was interviewed multiple times over the following years. She never changed her story. She maintained until her death that she did not know the man on the beach. But investigators never believed her. She had nearly fainted at the sight of his face. She had given out copies of a Persian poetry book during the war. Her phone number was in the back of a rare edition found near the body. And the cipher in that book was never decoded. It has never been decoded. Cryptographers, intelligence agencies, universities, thousands of amateur code breakers over 70 years. Nobody has ever read what was written in the back of that book. The theories were immediate and they were extraordinary. Cold War espionage. Australia in 1948 was a deeply surveilled society. British intelligence had a significant presence in Adelaide. The city was close to the Woomera rocket testing range, where some of the most classified defense work in the Southern Hemisphere was being conducted. A man with no identity, no cause of death, a coded message, a connection to a woman who nearly fainted at his face, and labels removed from every item of clothing. This was not a drifter who fell asleep on a beach. Some investigators believed he was a Soviet intelligence operative who had been poisoned, either by his own side or by Western counterintelligence, and left on the beach to be found. Others believed Jessica Thompson was herself an operative, that the Rubaiyat was a code book used between agents, and that the cipher in the back cover was a message intended only for one other person. Jessica Thompson's own daughters later suggested that both she and the dead man may have been part of a Soviet spy ring operating in post-war Australia. None of it was ever proven. The cipher was never broken. The identity was never confirmed. The cause of death was never established. For 74 years, the man on Somerton Beach had no name. In 2022, everything changed, and nothing changed. Professor Derek Abbott of the University of Adelaide had been investigating the case for years. His team extracted DNA from hairs trapped in the plaster cast of the dead man's face, hairs that had been sitting in that plaster since 1949. Using a technique that could pull usable DNA from hair strands with no roots attached, something previously considered impossible. They ran the genetic profile through genealogy databases. The result pointed to one man, Carl Webb, born 1905 in Melbourne, an electrical engineer and instrument maker, married then separated. A man his ex-wife described as violent, moody, and obsessed with writing poems about death. Carl Webb. Investigators found his divorce papers. His ex-wife Dorothy Robertson had noted he was into playing cards, which reframed the cipher entirely. Some researchers now believe the coded letters in the Rubaiyat were horse racing notes, the first letters of horses' names in a betting system. Not spy communications, gambling records. Carl Webb had reportedly told people he loved betting on horses and wrote his own poetry. The connection to the Rubaiyat, a book about the acceptance of fate and death, may have been personal. The act of a man who had already decided what he was going to do. South Australian police are still working to formally verify the DNA findings with their own forensic samples. As of 2025, the case has not been officially closed, and the cipher in the back of the book has still never been decoded. Here is what the beach gave us. A man in a pressed suit, with polished shoes and manicured nails, sitting peacefully against a sea-wall as the Australian sun went down, with a half-smoked cigarette balanced on his collar as if he had simply stopped mid-thought, a scrap of Persian poetry in a hidden pocket, a coded message in the back of a rare book, a phone number belonging to a woman who nearly fainted at his face, a cipher that has never been read. His name may be Carl Webb, or it may be something he left behind in Melbourne, along with his marriage and his debts and his gambling slips. What we know for certain is this. He cut every label from every item he owned before he died. He left nothing behind that could identify him. Whether that was the act of an intelligence operative or a man who simply wanted to disappear, the result was the same. He almost succeeded. 74 years, a plaster cast, hairs no thicker than thread, and modern technology that could read what no one thought was still readable. The beach eventually gave him up, but it kept almost everything else. Tamam, Shud. It is finished. This was case 0.